The best time to analyse what someone is really thinking is when they least expect it. During one of the first engagements in which the Fab Four of the moment, and by Fab Four of the moment I mean Prince Harry, Meghan, Prince William and Princess Catherine of Wales, sat together on a panel and addressed an audience, we had some media slip-ups. Meghan accidentally, on purpose, threw shade on the work of her fellow interviewees when she said this.
You know, to see the model of the foundation is really interesting because while I've worked with larger NGOs, or I've also worked with really small grassroots organizations where you can see a higher level of impact, in my opinion, because there's a lot less red tape.
But then we also had the awkward question from the host about internal arguments within the foursome, more specifically the brothers. And now with hindsight, we really understand the awkwardness of this question.
Do you ever have disagreements about things?
Oh, yes. healthy disagreement.
Okay, the last thing you disagreed on, how do you resolve it?
They come so thick and fast. But is it resolved? We don't know.
Oh, we don't know. Well, you're putting on a great show if it's not.
But today we are going to look into the expressions of the ladies when the spotlight is off, allowing us a clearer vision of how they were really feeling in that moment. Let's get to the crunch. When we watch Catherine, the Princess of Wales's reaction when her husband is talking, we see an excellent example of someone who is doing two things very well. One, she's listening to him, and more importantly, she is reacting appropriately when it's appropriate. She laughs when he's injecting humour into his words, and she remains serious when he's discussing more sombre topics. And secondly, she doesn't attempt to draw any attention away from him during this moment. She is focused on listening to him and she's not looking around to see other people's reactions. She is engaged in what he's saying and could be described as a beacon of support. We can tell most of the time she's in agreement. If we watch Meghan at the moment in which Catherine, the Princess of Wales, is talking, we see some very rapid changes of emotion, which are hugely unrelated to what the princess is saying. For example, when she discusses the bigger problems that the three of them had been tackling individually, which are quite dark issues such as knife crime and addiction, Meghan smiles. It's inappropriate, but not only that, it's an indication that she really isn't listening, or if she is listening, then she just loves the idea of knife crime and addiction. It's very odd. It's a very odd moment. Then before the princess finishes her thought, Meghan turns her back on the princess to scratch her head or fix her hair. It's unclear exactly what she's doing, but what is clear is that the gesture of turning away from someone whilst they're speaking, not just anyone, this is the future Queen of Britain, it is very disrespectful. She does this again when the princess is talking. Before the princess is finished, Meghan turns away to look at the interviewer as if the interviewer is more important than the Princess of Wales. From this segment, it is reasonable to assume that due to the princess's more delicate manner, Meghan has concluded she is less important. And this is kind of how bullies generally think. Perhaps if the princess was loud and unhinged, Meghan would have more respect for her. But this is a very dangerous, and to avoid using the word stupid here, I will say naive attitude. Never should we assume the influence someone may have based on their more delicate demeanour. It reminds me of the quote, "The more you stay silent, listen, observe, pause and focus, the better chance you have of making smart choices. Meaningful silence is far better than meaningless words." And I think this perfectly sums up the two women's differences. So here we have Catherine not needing to express everything she's thinking, but really get to the point and saying it in a very delicate way. One thing that made me laugh out loud in rewatching this footage is when Meghan stated that she will hit the ground running.
For me, it's very important to once you hit the ground running, even if you're doing it quietly behind the scenes, which is what I've focused my energy on thus far.
Oh boy, did she hit the ground running all the way back to the US, back to her grifter ways, and back to not even having enough influence to sell jam or strawberry jelly, I should say respectfully, for all those who live across the pond. Someone said, feel the burning rage Markle feels when looking at Kate. There have been a lot of people who have remarked on the fact that she doesn't look very happy. In fact, at one moment we see her smile, which doesn't come across as a genuine smile when she's observing Kate talking, turn into a kind of grimace. I'll pause it here for you to see it. It's the kind of expression that makes anyone feel uncomfortable. And someone else said, Meghan sounds so militant, not the selfless voice of charity-driven work, but rather a political one. Yes, which could come across as fake or having an agenda, a different agenda. Whilst the other three generally during this interview, if you've watched it all, you'll see, talk about the goals that they have together and what they can achieve by working together and the challenges they are focused on overcoming. On the other side, when we see Meghan talk arguably too much about herself and her own opinions, it's rare that we hear the royal family talking about politics or diving into politics, and she very quickly dived into some very heavy political issues. So having a tendency to very easily slip into the political realm was probably unnerving for the rest of them. I thought this comment made me really laugh. Meghan is awesome and real. Kate is not an example I want my daughter to follow. Chasing a guy for 10 years, switching university for him, no. Chasing your dreams, develop a personality, yes. Yay, Meghan, a breath of fresh air. I find this so funny because obviously all of the things that have happened since this interview, this was a comment on this interview 6 years ago now, we've obviously got a person who has completely divided her own family and now her husband's family. So if that's the kind of person you want as your daughter, someone who is an expert at tearing families apart, then I feel terribly sorry for you, rather than a woman who, yes, she has been with her husband for a very long time since university. For me, that's a fairy tale relationship. I couldn't ask for anything better for my daughter. You know, if you could choose in an ideal world, I think I would choose this fairy tale marriage that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, and her husband William have. Someone else said, it makes me wonder how Meghan couldn't get help with her mental state, but her and Harry were involved in Heads Together. Is that not to do with mental health? Yes, of course. When we had the exposure of all of Harry and Meghan's internal thoughts through the Oprah interview and through the podcast and through the tell-all book that Harry wrote, were exposed to the fact that allegedly nobody was there to help Meghan as a champion of mental health campaigning, apparently, and someone who has campaigned for women to find their voice, for someone who is so knowledgeable on mental illness and has a lot to say about it and preaches a lot about how to make things better. And she ultimately blamed everyone else for the fact that she couldn't get any help. So it's an unusual conundrum. It's difficult to know what Meghan is. Is she this powerful force helping women find their voice or use their voice? Or is she this delicate wallflower who cannot help herself when she is in such a high position of power as well? Hit like if you too love to dive into the inner psyche, and subscribe to help the Crown family blossom. Tap the notification bell so you don't miss a future episode, and we'll see you down in the comments.